If you believe the American legal system is structured to hold every individual accountable, then what just occurred involving Donald Trump is historic. For the first time, the Supreme Court of the United States issued a decision that significantly narrows the legal protections a former president may attempt to use. This is not about politics or personal viewpoints. It is about how the law functions and how institutions respond when they are tested. The court's ruling does not convict or accuse anyone, but it removes legal strategies that had delayed proceedings for years. For supporters, critics, and legal observers alike, this is a moment that draws attention. It demonstrates that the rules governing the highest office in the country are real, enforceable, and intended to apply to everyone. The Supreme Court's decision focuses on the issue of presidential immunity and executive privilege after leaving office. Over time, former presidents and their legal teams have often argued that certain actions taken while serving in the White House remain protected even after their term ends. These arguments can delay investigations, slow prosecutions, and create leverage in both civil and criminal cases. In Trump's situation, these legal strategies had been used to slow multiple ongoing investigations. However, the Supreme Court's ruling clarified that these protections are not unlimited. Legal experts explain that while sitting presidents may have certain protections, most of those protections largely end once a president leaves office. This distinction is important because it removes uncertainty and establishes clearer precedent for the future. The ruling itself was unanimous. All 9 justices agreed that the earlier interpretations of immunity relied upon by Trump's legal team were too broad. Even the 3 justices appointed during his administration joined the majority. This is significant because it shows that the outcome was based on legal interpretation rather than political alignment or loyalty. The court emphasized that no individual, regardless of position, is above the law when private or personal conduct is involved. Although the opinion is detailed and complex, its central meaning is straightforward. Former presidents cannot use claims of immunity to avoid legal accountability for actions that fall outside their official duties. For Trump, the ruling removes the primary argument his legal team had been using to delay proceedings. Previously, his lawyers could argue that certain cases, especially those connected to actions during his presidency, should not move forward immediately. That approach created time and flexibility to respond to legal challenges, collect evidence, and prepare defenses. With the Supreme Court's decision, those protections no longer operate in the same way. Cases that were previously stalled can now proceed, and prosecutors have clearer authority to move forward. Experts note that this does not automatically lead to convictions or penalties. Instead, it means Trump's legal defenses will need to focus more directly on facts, evidence, and case-specific law, rather than procedural protections. Any delays previously available through claims of immunity or privilege are now significantly reduced, and the timeline for legal proceedings is expected to move faster. This ruling is not only about one individual. It also sets precedent for how former presidents and other high-ranking officials may be treated in the future. By defining the limits of immunity, the Supreme Court ensures that future office holders cannot rely on similarly broad protections to delay or obstruct legal processes. Legal scholars view this as reinforcing the principle that no one in the United States is above the law. It strengthens public confidence in institutions and clarifies boundaries surrounding executive authority. Beyond criminal matters, the ruling may also affect civil lawsuits, financial investigations, and state-level cases. Previously, Trump's legal team argued that immunity could delay or restrict these proceedings. Now, the same legal principle that applies to criminal cases extends to other legal actions, allowing courts to move forward with less uncertainty. Following the decision, several legal cases that had been paused or delayed may now advance at the same time. These include federal investigations related to election matters, civil financial lawsuits, and state-level prosecutions. Experts emphasize that this alignment creates a rare legal scenario. Cases that are normally staggered or separated can now progress in a more coordinated manner. Each proceeding may reinforce the others, creating what some analysts describe as a compounding effect of legal accountability. the ruling also influences strategic legal decisions. Attorneys must now carefully evaluate how responses to court orders, in one case, could affect multiple proceedings simultaneously. Providing evidence or statements in one matter may influence outcomes in others. This introduces an additional layer of complexity that was not present before. Legal professionals describe the situation as a system, now operating in alignment rather than in sequence, meaning the law is advancing more efficiently and without the delays that were previously available. A central element of this ruling involves the boundaries of presidential immunity. While presidents may receive certain protections during their time in office, those protections do not continue indefinitely after leaving office. The Supreme Court of the United States emphasized that claims of immunity do not apply to private actions, personal conduct, or activities outside official responsibilities. In the same way, executive privilege is not absolute. Communications and documents may still be reviewed, particularly when allegations of criminal conduct are involved. This creates new opportunities for prosecutors to obtain evidence that had previously been restricted or delayed. The ruling also addresses procedural issues. Courts are no longer required to pause cases based on overly broad arguments related to immunity or privilege. This limits the ability to stall proceedings and helps ensure that justice progresses within a reasonable time frame. Civil cases, including financial fraud or defamation lawsuits, are also affected because claims relying on immunity or privilege are now more restricted. As delays are reduced, key dates across multiple legal proceedings will now carry greater importance. Experts highlight several upcoming events in the coming months, including hearings in federal and state courts, civil enforcement deadlines, and procedural deadlines for document submissions. Each of these developments will have implications for both criminal and civil matters. By removing procedural obstacles, the Supreme Court has effectively opened the path for legal systems to proceed without the pauses that Donald Trump's legal team previously relied upon. Legal observers note that these deadlines create circumstances where activity in one case can influence others. Evidence submitted in one proceeding may become relevant in another. Depositions and witness testimony may carry broader legal impact. This interconnected structure means that legal accountability is no longer isolated, but instead reinforced across multiple cases. Beyond the immediate legal consequences, the ruling carries broader implications for how executive authority is interpreted in the United States. By clarifying that no individual stands above the law, the Supreme Court strengthens institutional credibility. Future presidents, legal teams, and lawmakers now have clearer guidance regarding legal boundaries and limitations. The decision reinforces the principle that the rule of law applies equally to all individuals, regardless of official status. The ruling also reflects the resilience of the judicial system. Through a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court demonstrates that legal interpretation and constitutional principles can guide outcomes even in politically sensitive cases. This helps preserve public confidence in the ability of institutions to function independently of partisan influence. Looking ahead, several potential scenarios exist. First, cases may proceed and accountability may be achieved. Trials advance, evidence is examined, and courts issue decisions based on legal standards. This outcome strengthens institutional trust and reinforces the rule of law. Second, cases may encounter procedural challenges or additional delays. Even with the Supreme Court's ruling, lower courts and legal teams may still need to navigate complex procedural issues. While accountability remains possible, timelines could extend and public attention may shift. Third, broader legal debates may emerge. As proceedings continue, questions surrounding executive authority, immunity, and privilege may persist. These discussions could influence future legislation and judicial interpretation. The Supreme Court's ruling represents a landmark moment. It does not convict or accuse anyone, but it removes key legal protections that had delayed accountability for Donald Trump. The decision establishes precedent for how former presidents are treated under the law and reinforces the principle that no one is above the law. Legal proceedings that were previously paused or slowed can now advance, creating a complex and interconnected timeline of accountability. For observers, the central takeaway is clear. The legal system is operating as designed. Procedural barriers that once delayed progress have been reduced, and legal institutions are applying rules consistently, regardless of political considerations. This moment reinforces the foundations of American democracy and highlights the importance of accountability, transparency, and institutional integrity. Disclaimer: this script is based on publicly available legal information and expert analysis. It does not constitute legal advice or assert guilt or innocence. Scenarios described are for formational purposes and reflect potential legal outcomes rather than confirmed events.